L'evento sole mare luccica all'astro d'argento placida l'onda prospero l'evento venite all'argine orchestra mia Santa Lucia Santa Lucia I don't think it's but early 40s.
So that was before the Cultural Revolution itself.
Well, as in 52, I was out, and I got there. I first went there in '82.
Okay.
I got there in November '81. And then that was the start of my time there. And at that time, there was nothing going on in China because I think it was just they had just begun to open, and it was hard to get out for 10 years. That's standard. For vacation, they give you a check for 10 years.
10 years.
But in the early days, it was, and then we have 6 men who had their visa taken away.
Taken away.
The problem is they were spending too much time talking to the priests. If they go in one priest at a time, they pick you right up. I always went in with a group of people, like a tour.
Like a tour, right?
I tell people if they go work in China, go in with a group of people. I have a long history with justice and peace.
There was a time that you were the superior of...
when I was superior was from 1996 to 1994 to 2000, 6 years I was the superior. And in the States, I was very heavily involved with the movements. I worked with Dr. Martin Luther King and with the peace movement, and I was very much connected with it. In fact, they had an FBI record on me, which was, I think I saw it.
Okay.
Now, and then I tell you, I was working with that, and actually, I worked for an organization called the National Federation of Priest Councils, which is a very unusual organization in the United States. Every priest, those Vatican II, they started priest councils so the bishops would get more in contact with the priests, and every diocese had one, and they federated, and I got involved with that. And then I became the Justice and Peace Director for that organization. So for about 9 years, I traveled all over the United States, mostly on the bus. I'd get on the bus and go to, because the bus could get me to any little town in the United States. And I'd show up to Paris, and I'd live there for maybe overnight and a day or two. Or maybe
so you had to animate the younger priests.
And then I was helping them organize their observing, where they had something to observe, and then we separated our agenda in the in the priest organization according to a lot of justice and peace thing, outreach of church into society, Vatican II. We were implementing that, and I had the background in justice and peace, so I was kind of coordinating it. And every year we'd set an agenda, and then I would help them wherever they are, kind of connect with organizations and help them, give them ideas and that kind of stuff. So I was very involved.
When did your vocation to come to the East, when did you think about
I'll tell you it happened. I'll tell you, in 1980, 4 women were killed in Central America. And I was really taken back. 2 of them were Mariano sisters. They were brutally murdered, raped and murdered in, I think it's El Salvador. And when I heard that, I said, oh my God, I said, the action's overseas now. So I called up my Mariano and I said, you know, I've been doing a lot of work here, but I want to go overseas now. Okay. So I waited about 6 months and didn't hear anything. They got in at 81, okay? So then I finally called them, hey, what's going on? Because that time I was 50 years old, and I was very involved with the church. And I knew priests everywhere, okay? I never stepped, when I was doing my work, I never stepped outside of my priest. I just called and say, this is Tom Peyton MFBC. I was saying to them, okay. Never had any priest. Okay. No. So then I called him Marinol, and we was in that 81, and then I said, hey, where's my assignment? He says, okay, so then they called me back and they said, we give you a choice. You go to Brazil, okay, or China. Okay. Now I had made, in 80 I had made a trip to China. They just wanted me to get away, and Marinol gave me a free trip. Okay. And then where were the Marinos? To Hong Kong. Yes. Because there were Marinos in the other places. Right. Not in Hong Kong.
Not in Hong Kong. Right.
Now, Marino had a house there, but I don't think it was.
That was somewhere in the mainland.
No, they had a house. The Marino house for China was in the Hong Kong Island. And the reason for that was, in the early days when men went to the mission, starting in 1919, there were no roads. Okay. And traveling the roads was extremely dangerous. Mm-hmm. So nobody traveled the roads, but there are a lot of, from the river, the West River going up, there was a lot of tributaries, and every place you went by boat. Okay. And then you got off the boat and So the missionaries, and they go all the way up to say up in the, where it goes, the river street goes up and then turns left. It goes over into Guangsai and then out to Wannan, and it goes all the way up to Seichu, in the mountains. Now, so all of our missions were along that river.
Okay. So your base was in Hong Kong, but you traveled by river.
Yeah, I did make that trip sometimes by boat. Okay. But actually up to Guangdong. And then from there, I used to take a bus or something. But I did make some long river trips also. I did a lot of traveling by just bus or river. The planes were not very good. The reason is they land outside the cities. Right. And the bus would take you right. You get a bus to go to the city when you get to.
How did you?
I did that in the States. That's why I knew how to do it.
How did you start the work with the leprosy patients?
Well, I was aware generally of Marino's work with leprosy because I read about it. Okay, it's kind of a big story among Marinos. Okay, and it kind of started to work there, and then I was in China in 1980, let's see, about 1983, 81, my first time in China, and 83, and then I started to go to China with a group of Catholics, always in a group at that time, okay? And I remember we were there, and I'm making trips into China once in a while, okay? And with the groups. And we go visit the churches. And I remember one time I was going into China early in Guangdong, you know. I mean, Guangzhou. You know, Guangzhou wasn't too big then. And it's just kind of a
messy place.
You know, it's not a big city, but a city, but a big city. I remember I went in with a friend of mine who was had been in Hong Kong, was in America, Europe, and he played a joke on me. And so we were out in Guangzhou, visiting a church, I think, and a lot of kids around because they're Westerners. They didn't see many Westerners. And my friend, he spoke Chinese. And he said, hey, this is a movie star from America.
Okay.
Almost tons of people coming at me. He was laughing. He was sitting in the back laughing. I had tons of people coming. I didn't know what the hell was going on, you know. And I, what's going on? And they tell me, I told him you're a movie star from America. But,
so that's you started then from Guangzhou you found the
so then I began to go into Guangzhou, and it's easy to get to by boat. And then one morning, I know I got up. We were coming back through Macau into to get to. It's really to go by river.
Right.
Okay. So, I asked the Chinese guy around. We were staying in a hotel. Some, hey, are there some leprosy centers around here? You know, yes. He said, go on one. He says, oh, it's about an hour down the road. Well, we didn't have the time to go there at the time, you know. So what I did when I got back, then I went up there and visited myself.
Okay, and so you went another time.
Yeah, and I got there, I think in the early 80s.
Okay.
And it was you know, the buildings were in wreck and everything, and at those times it was very bad. And so that's when I started with leprosy.
You said
and from then I just would go straight into China out west to Huangsai,
Fazhou.
Most of it was Guangdong, okay, but then into Guangzhou, and then Guangnan, and then what do you call it? Guangnan and Seichun, way in the mountains.
Okay, right.
And all those places have an earned connection. But and then I know in that route I know every bishop now because I knew them when they were ordained priests.
Okay.
They're about 40 something, 50. I know them all.
Okay.
Because I was going back and forth, and I knew them when they were just ordained. And then I knew the bishops who came out of prison in that whole area. They were released from prison sometimes 20 years or something, and some of them were very, very tough. I didn't really think, you know, physically. And I used to go visit them all the time. And so I knew all the bishops, and then the old bishop died, but they ordained these guys priests, and then these guys, when they're, you know, became the bishops after when these people died. And so I know all the bishops. I've been seeing them, and I want to go down now to John Gong, way in the down the south, right? That's the last place. But you know, see how they're doing that. And so you know that was my.
You were saying one of your strategies was to go in a group of people.
Always travel in a group.
Was there any instance of the government people intimidating you or policemen inquiring things or accosting you?
Well, I was frequently interviewed.
Okay.
But you know, I just had to come in, and at that time, the government wasn't they had a doctor assigned to each leprosy place, but he was what we call barefoot doctors. They were not too much training, but minimum, okay? And I would go visit them, and I got in contact with a lot of those people. I was helping out.
Okay.
I was helping out with the food. Now, but what happened was, I connected, so I was going to, I think it was in 80, early 83. I was you know, getting up in the morning with my group, going back to Hong Kong, and this is before I got to the first leprosy place. That's probably the second leprosy place, and I says, hey, is there I heard, he said, I said, is there a leprosy place around here? Yeah, down the road. He says, there was a priest from Macau that just went there.
Okay.
Like just before me.
Okay.
First time. Oh yeah, what's well, his father's name is Luis Ruiz.
Father Ruiz. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
So, cold, I went to Macau. I had a priest from India who died unfortunately in the States. I don't know, around 60 years old. My best friend, okay? And he every year he come here, and the next year I'd go back and see him. I would stay with him. He'd live with me.
Okay.
We had a long history of working with
Tell us something.
movements.
Okay. Tell us
So I just want to say, so then what happened is that then when I went back, I said, that's when I started to come into leprosy. And after that, I just kept following all the old places and that's when I would begin. They were in very need. Food, medicine. But then I contacted Luis, who was a missionary that goes back to before the 40s, and he was thrown out of China and in Macau. And so I said, I remember I went down there and knew it, and I asked her, I walked around one morning, a couple hours, didn't find a way. You know about Luis? Oh yeah, he lives up on the hill. So I went, he was running like a Catholic Charities. And I walked up there and he had these old buildings. And I remember I walked into one looking for, and I saw this, he was built like a square, tough peasant from Spain. And strong as like a block, you know what I mean? You know, that kind of
he was
farmer build, you know,
yes.
tough. And I said, oh, I said, where Father? He's in there. So I opened it, I just walked in, and here was Father Luis standing up there. It was about from the door to here, but the room this wide. People would guess doing typing because he was like, where's your money for Catholic Church? He was helping refugees in Macau.
Right.
And he went up to at that time most of the supplies, the food and everything was coming from the U.S. At that time, and they went up to Hong Kong. There were some priests there in the Marina House who were doing refugee work with these supplies coming in.
I have read Father Ruiz was working when the first the leprosy patients migrated to Colovan village. Many were
but actually
in Colovan.
he didn't get much involved before I did.
Okay.
That we did together.
Okay.
Now what happened was then I went and I said, Father Luis, I'm Tom Peyton from there. I said, like he was standing at the door, I hollered out to him, and he says, welcome, man. He speaks a lot of languages.
Okay.
But one of his old friends, because many of his classmates are in Taiwan, right? We were inseparable for about 16 years. And he went to Taiwan, I went to Taiwan, and he would be talking his old Jesuit. I'm a Jesuit educated,
right.
And so he'd be talking, and the one of the priests says, I said, oh, he talks to lions, yes, I'll tell you, he says. In my priesthood, I said to the guy, how you yet try Joe, son, Joe, Yako Tuntai, community, huh? They said, come on, I'll hold my son, give me the yet try Joe, yet even sick, but hold my son, come in, sick, but, so hold some, come down and yet try Joe, come hold some. Ling off all my son. That's it.
Very happy because all of us are together. It makes him so happy.
Yeah, it's all
The work that we do together.
I love the people together. And some I know and some I don't, but it's a community of people, and I'm very happy.
Yeah. Yeah, happy to have you, Father. How fitting to have you.
I and always
我哋會用你教我哋嘅祈禱一齊念預備你可以發我哋嘅生活。我們的天父，
願你的名受顯揚，願你的國來臨，願你的旨意奉行在人間，如同在天上。求你今天常給我們日用的食糧，求你寬恕我們的罪過，如同我們寬恕別人一樣。不要讓我們陷於誘惑，但救我們免於兇惡。
好為心嘅其他嘅神父同我一齊嗌，求你的天主聖父聖子聖神降福你們。阿們。多謝神。